Today I'm going to revise the play The Proposal by Anton Chekhov. So, does this image really define the play? We have to read it and find it out, or whether there's a flip side to it. So, let's discuss it. So, it's rather long play, so I'll go a little fast. First, about the author. So he was a Russian playwright, the master of the modern short story. Chekhov's best plays and short stories lack complex plots and neat solutions, concentrating on the apparent trivialities. So trivialities means insignificant issues. They create a special kind of atmosphere. Chekhov described the Russian life of his time using a deceptively simple technique devoid of obtrusive literary devices. So, not very prominent literary devices are used, and he is regarded as an outstanding representative of the late 19th century Russian realist school. So this play is going to portray the Russian society in 19th century. The first thing that comes to our mind when we hear the word proposal is asking for someone's hand in marriage, obviously out of love. So thanks to Bollywood for this. But not all proposals are out of love. There are other reasons also to marry. Well, yes, there are. So let's find it out. What are the other reasons? About the play now. The Proposal, originally titled A Marriage Proposal, is a one act play, a farce. Farce means a comic dramatic work by the Russian short story writer and dramatist we've already done, Anton Chekhov. It was written in 1888-89, so that is the time period for the play. The play is about the tendency of wealthy families to seek ties with other wealthy families. So this is the theme. So it is tendency of wealthy families to seek ties with other wealthy families to increase their estates by encouraging marriages that make good economic sense. So the important thing was that it should result in increase in their wealth. So good economic sense. Ivan Limov, a long-time wealthy neighbor of Stepan Chupkov, also wealthy, comes to seek the hand of Chupkov's 25-year-old daughter Natalia. So all three they are quarrelsome people and they quarrel over petty issues. The proposal is in danger of being forgotten amidst all this quarreling. But economic good sense ensures the proposal is made after all, although the quarreling perhaps continues. So this is the gist of the chapter, what's going to be there in the play. Now let's read it. So the characters in the one act play, they are Stepan Stepanovich Chupkov, that is the landowner. Natalia Stepanova is the daughter, 25 years old, and Ivan Vassilovich Lomov, a neighbor of Chupkov, a large and hearty but a very suspicious landowner. Now there's a tip. When the person's age is being used as an adjective before or his name, then we write year old and not years old. For example, 25-year-old Natalia is daughter of Chupkov. Now here I've written his daughter 25 years old because I am not using it as an adjective. So when the age comes as an adjective, you only have to write year old, not years. So remember this because this is a common mistake. So now we come to the first scene of the play. A drawing room in Chupkov's house. Lemov enters. He is wearing a dress jacket and white gloves. So Chupkov rises to meet him. So this is page 144. Chupkov is surprised to see Lemov at his house after a long time, and that too in an evening dress. They greet each other and are rather too polite to each other. So this too polite, when you read the play, this language tells you that this is false. So Stephen thinks that Lemov has come to borrow money, which of course he is not willing to give. So this is his presumption. So Stephen assumes that he has come, Lemov has come to ask for money. Lemov, on the other hand, is quite nervous and excited. He is not able to speak his purpose. At last, at the great insistence of Stephen, he announces that he has come to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. Now, on the next page, Stephen is not able to believe this. His joy has no bounds. There was nothing more he could have wished for. In excitement, he even loses his balance. He praises Lemov and his family. He calls him his angel as if he is his own son. To Lemov's question whether Natalia would agree to the proposal, Stephen says, "Why, of course, my darling," and as if she won't consent. She is in love, a god. She's like a lovesick cat, and so on. Shan't be long. And saying this, Stephen exists. So, all these lines that are in green, these are the actual dialogues that I've taken from the play, and these will help you in your extract. So, important dialogues I have taken from the play, and they are in green. Now Lemov is all alone. He's trembling as if he has to sit for an examination. So something is going on in his mind. So we'll see what is going on in his mind. Agard here, it means extremely surprised or excited. It is an exclamation and it is archaic. It was used in ancient times, not now. So this is Lemov. So what he says when he's alone, the great thing is. So again, this is in green. That means these are the dialogues I've taken from the play itself. So the great thing is, I must have made my mind. I must have my mind made up. If I give myself time to think, to hesitate, to talk a lot, to look for an ideal or for real love, then I'll never get married. So this is important, to look for an ideal or to look for real love. That means he is not in love with Natalia. So he is just saying that I have to make my mind. First, I must make my mind that I want to get married. I want to get married to Natalia. So it's cold, he's trembling. So he says Natalia Stepanova is an excellent housekeeper, not bad looking, well educated. So he is telling himself while he's making up his mind that Natalia has all these good points. So he says, what more I do? So what more do I want? But I'm getting a noise in my ears from excitement. Drinks. So at this point, for me not to marry in the first place, I'm already 35, a critical age, so to speak. So now he's telling himself that if I do not marry at this critical age of 35, I may not marry at all. So he is 35 and he is not also keeping well. That we'll read in the next paragraph. And he's making himself ready for marriage. And obviously, in his mind, it's money, as you can see in the picture, because he is not in love with Natalia. So, in the second place, he says, I ought to lead a quite regular life. I suffer from palpitations. I'm excitable and always getting awfully upset. At this very moment, my lips are trembling and there's a twitch in my right eyebrow. So, all these points you have to remember because these can be asked in a question. What were the reasons for Lemov to marry Natalia? So, but the very worst of all is that the way I sleep. I no sooner get into bed and begin to go off when suddenly something in my left side gives a pull, and I can feel it in my shoulder and head. I jump up like a lunatic, walk about a bit, and lie down again. But as soon as I began to get off to sleep, there's another pull. And this may happen 20 times. So when he's thinking all this is going on in his mind, he is making up his mind to propose to Natalia. So at that moment, Natalia comes in. Natalia too is surprised at the visit of Lemov. Seeing Lemov, she says, it's you. And Papa said, go, there's a merchant come for his goods. So note this dialogue. So this means some business deal. So there's a merchant come for his goods. It is a business deal. But Lemov is there to marry Natalia. So this shows what it really meant to him. Him, his father of Natalia. So it was not more than a business deal. So both sit down and have a casual talk. They're polite to each other, but mostly they talk about work and profit. So again, two neighbors, they are meeting after a long time, but still they're just talking casually about their business, work, and profit. So this is what Natalia has to say on meeting a neighbor after a long time. So these are the dialogues of Natalia. The weather is splendid now, but yesterday it was so wet that the workmen didn't do anything all day. How much hay have you stacked? Just think, I felt greedy and had a whole field cut, and now I'm not at all pleased about it because I'm afraid my hay may rot. I ought to have waited a bit. During the talk, Natalia doesn't seem to show any signs of attraction towards Lemov or any liking for him. So she is not expecting a proposal. So she is normal, she is casual, and she is not showing any signs of attraction towards Lemov. Then she casually asks about the evening dress he is wearing. At this, Lemov becomes excited and respectfully says that he has made up his mind to ask her to hear him out. Then he beats about the bush. He's not able to come to the point, becomes nervous, and all that. So again, he is not able to come to the point. He directly doesn't propose it. He is beating about the bush. It is because he doesn't have those feelings inside. It's all made up. So now on page 147, he starts talking about the friendly relations between the two families since their grandfather's time, talking about sharing closeness. So he says that his land is close to their land. His oxen meadows, they touch her birch woods. So the meadows, they touch her birch woods. So saying this, the drama begins. So they start arguing about the ownership of those meadows. Both say they own that piece of land and they're ready to prove it. So both are ready to produce documents. What Lemov says. He says, but you can see from the documents, honored Natalia Stepanova, oxen meadows, it's true, were once a subject of dispute, but now everybody knows that they are mine. There's nothing to argue about that. You see, my aunt's grandmother gave the free use of these meadows in perpetuity to the peasant of your father's grandfather, in return for which they were to make bricks for her. The peasants belonging to your father's grandfather had free use of the meadows for 40 years and had got into the habit of regarding them as their own when it happened that. So he is cut short. Perpetuity means that lasts forever. So he is explaining that those meadows, they are her aunt's, you see, my aunt's grandmother. So gave free use of those meadows to her father's grandfathers. So he says for 40 years they have been using those meadows and therefore they start thinking that they belong to them. And the argument heats up from the use of polite words to questioning each other's integrity. So for that piece of land, the proposal, it has taken a back seat, they've forgotten about that, and they are arguing about that small piece of land. Natalia says that those meadows, they are worth nothing to her, but she cannot stand unfairness. So she makes it clear that those meadows, they are not worth anything. They does not mean anything to her, but she cannot stand unfairness. She even says that you can wear 15 such dress jackets, but the meadows are ours. So she is thinking that he has dressed up to impress upon her to take those meadows. But she says, therefore, that you can wear 15 such dresses, but those meadows, they are ours. She makes it clear, I don't want anything of yours, I don't want to give anything of mine. So there. So there is important. It shows the tone of the character. So here it is like she has made her point and she says, now what? So I'm not going to give anything that belongs to me, and I don't want anything that belongs to you. Lemov also says that he doesn't want the meadows, but he's acting on principle. So Lemov, he also says that those meadows, they are not at all, they don't mean anything to him also. But the principle says that they are his, so they are his. So therefore, he can even make a present of those meadows to her. So he says that he can gift those meadows to Natalia, but the meadows are his only. So at this, Natalia becomes furious. She accuses him of acting in a strange way. She adds that she has thought of him as a good neighbor and had lent him a threshing machine last year, because of which they had to put off their own threshing till November. So now she is counting on the favors she has done for the neighbor. She's reminding him of the favor and asking him to acknowledge it. So Lemov is too enraged now. So he points out if she is calling him a land grabber. So he clarifies, Madam, never in my life have I grabbed anybody else's land, and I shan't allow anybody to accuse me of having done so. Oxen meadows are mine. So now both shout at each other and they're saying, mine, mine, mine. On page 149, so here Natalia takes one step further and she announces, it's not true. I'll prove it. I'll send my mowers out to the meadows this very day. So at the name of mowers, Lemov also threatens, I will give your mowers in the neck. His voice becomes loud. Natalia warns him and asks him not to shout in her house. So Lemov, who has numerous problems, tells her, if it wasn't, madam, for this awful, excruciating palpitation, if my whole inside wasn't upset, I'd have talked to you in a different way. But again he yells, oxen meadows are mine. So both are yelling again. Listening to these shouts, Stephen comes in. Natalia asks her father to tell Lemov that the oxen meadows are theirs. Chupkov very politely tells Lemov that the meadows they belong to them. On page 150, Lemov asks Chupkov to be reasonable and tries to explain the story again. So the same previous story about the aunt's grandfather and 40 years. Now Chupkov makes a new point. You forget just this, that the peasants they didn't pay your grandmother and all that because the meadows were in dispute and so on. And now everybody knows that they are ours. It means that you haven't seen the plan. So now he tells another thing to Lemov that the rent was not paid at all. So peasants didn't pay your grandmother and all that because the meadows they were in dispute and so on. So he says that the meadows they are ours. It means that you haven't seen the plan. So you haven't seen the plan. Maybe there are some new documents or papers. So he says that you haven't seen those. Lemov is not convinced and says that he will prove that the meadows are his. Chupkov firmly says, Dear one, why yell like that? You won't prove anything just by yelling. I don't want anything of yours and don't intend to give up what I have. Why should I? So he is repeating the same dialogue that the daughter had. So he also says that I don't want anything that is yours, but I don't intend to give up what I have. And you know, my beloved, that if you propose to go on arguing about it, I would much sooner give up the meadows to the peasants than to you. There. So now again he says, This is what I will do. So he says, I'm not going to give those meadows to anyone, not to you, but I will give those to the peasants. So, in an agitated tone, Nalimov says that how can you give away someone else's property? Chupkov reminds him of his age and asks him to mind his tone. So, to this, Lemov accuses him to be a grabber. So, now Chupkov tells that he is elderly, so he should mind his tone. But Lemov now accuses Chupkov for being a grabber. Chupkov is enraged and Natalia asks his father to send them over to the meadows at once. Lemov threatens to take the matter to court. So now Lemov has given a warning. On page 151, Chupkov says that you were on the lookout for a chance to go to court. He calls Lemov a pettifogger. So pettifogger is someone who deals with petty cases or employs dubious practice. So who wants to win the case by dubious practices. So he says that you are a pettifogger and you can try anything that is fake and dubious. Lemov reminds him of his grandfather, who was tried for embezzlement, so for fraud or theft. So now what has happened? A dirty game of dishonoring each other's family had started. So no one wants to lose. And the proposal? That is nowhere. It's forgotten. Now, Chupkov to Lemov, he says, Your family is a family of lunatics. Grandfather was drunkard and his younger aunt ran away with an architect and so on. And to this, Lemov says that your mother was humpbacked. And he's not feeling well and asks for water. So Lemov, he's not feeling well, he asks for water. He clutches at his heart. Something is pulling my inside. My head, help, water. Lemov is asking for help. But both father and daughter, they continue to abuse his family. Chupok says that your father was a guzzling gambler, so a greedy gambler. Natalia, your aunt was a backbiter. Now Lemov is complaining of uneasiness, but still he doesn't miss any chance to abuse them. So he says he calls Chupkov as an intriguer and wants to say something about the last elections in which Chupkov had tried to bribe. So he's not feeling well, so he's not able to say this complete word. So he meant bribe. Natalia calls him low, dishonest, and mean because of this. But Chupkov calls him malicious, double-faced intriguer. So all name calling now. Lemov takes his hat, he moves out as his foot has become numb and he's not feeling well. So Lemov he's not able to take anything more and he moves out. Chupkov and Natalia, they abuse him even after he is gone. Natalia calls him a rascal, a monster, and Chupkov calls him a villain, scarecrow, blind hand, turnip host, and says that after all this, he makes a proposal. This proposal word now rings in Natalia's ears. Natalia, she's not able to believe. What? Proposal? So on page 152, she goes into hysterics when she comes to know that Lemov had actually come there to propose her. So she starts yelling, "Bring him back, ah, bring him back." So she is now yelling and shouting at her father. Chupkov gets irritated at the tantrums of his daughter. "What's that? What's the matter with you?" Clutches at his head and says, "Oh, unhappy man that I am. I'll shoot myself. I'll hang myself. We've done for her." So he is frustrated at the tantrums of his daughter and says that I'm done with her. I'll hang myself. He says that it's better to hang myself than take her tantrums. So he seems to be helpless before the frenzy of his daughter. But Natalia wails again all the time. Chupkov then goes out and then he comes in after a while and tells Natalia that Lemov is coming and she must talk to him on her own. So he says that he's not going to say anything to him. She has to talk to him. So he feels burdened to be a father of a grown-up daughter. So he feels that it's a burden to be a father of a marriageable aged daughter. He says that he will cut his throat. First, we cursed him, abused him, asked him to go out. It's all because of you. So now he says that first we were cursing him, so we were abusing him, we asked him to get out, and now we are calling him. So he says this all is because of you. So now at this point, father and daughter, they are arguing. Both of them accuse of each other for this situation, and at this moment, Lemov returns. Natalia immediately seeks his forgiveness. Now check the change in Natalia. Natalia, the meadows are yours. Yes, yours. Do sit down. And they sit. We were wrong. She now tries to bring Lemov on the topic of his proposal and marriage. She changes the topic. She talks about shooting. So again, you see the topic chosen. It is shooting, not anything a friendly kind of topic. So she says, Lemov gives her a bad news about his dog. Guess who has gone lame? So as the topic is changed, the topic is about shooting. So he starts talking about his hunter dog. So talks about his dog. Guess who has gone lame? So he tells Natalia how expensive his dog is. Natalia disagrees and says it's too much for a dog like Guess. She compares Guess with her dog Squeezer, who was just for 85 rubles. Now the dog fight begins. So now both call their dog better. Natalia says her dog is only for 85 rubles but much better than Guess, which is for 125 rubles. She praises her dog for being thoroughbred, young, better on points and pedigree. She tells him no one knows anything about the pedigree of his dog. He is old and as ugly as a worn out cab horse. So now Natalia is praising her dog and is saying that her dog is better than his. Now Lemov says that he paid 125 rubles for his Guess and that is quite cheap as Guess is a first-rate dog. He says Squeezer is an overshot, which means that the dog is a bad hunter. Lemov goes to the extent of saying he's old, but I won't take 5 squeezes for him. So Lemov agrees that his dog Guess is old, but even then he says that I won't take 5 squeezes for him. Why? How can you? Guess is a dog. As for Squeezer, well, it's too funny to argue. Anybody you like has a dog as good as Squeezer. You may find them under every bush almost. So he is saying that dogs like Squeezer can be found in every street under every bush. So 25 rubles would be a handsome price to pay for him. So he says your dog is not worth more than 25 rubles. Natalia, there is some demon of contradiction in you today, Ivan Vasilevich. So at this, he says that you are contradicting me at every point. So she says that there's some demon of contradiction in you today. First, you pretend that the meadows are yours. Now that Guess is better than Squeezer. I don't like people who don't say what they mean. So she says that you know that you are wrong, but still you are saying the opposite. So she says, I don't like people who don't say what they mean. Because you know perfectly well that Squeezer is 100 times better than your silly Guess. So why do you want to say he isn't? So they again start arguing and the proposal is again forgotten. Lemov again becomes uneasy and asks Natalia to be quiet. So you see what a comical scene is being created. So Lemov, he's putting his hand on his heart and he's saying, palpitations, I'm feeling uneasy. And then they are arguing about the dog and proposal again is nowhere. So again, Chupkov, he re-enters. He asks, what's going on? Natalia asks her father to decide which dog is better. So he answers that Squeezer is better. When Lemov protests, Chupkov says, don't excite yourself, my precious one. Allow me. Your guest certainly has some good points, he says. He is purebred, firm on his feet, has well sprung ribs and all that. But, my dear man, if you want to know the truth, that dog has two defects. So you should know what defects he is saying. So he is old and he's short in the muscles. So now Chupkov says that your dog, maybe he has certain positive things, but there are two defects. So the defect is that he is old and he is short in the muzzle. Now Lemov wants to talk about facts. So Lemov says, now let's check the facts about the two dogs. So he says the first fact that he points out is, excuse me, my heart. So he is again having his hand on his heart. So let's take the facts. You will remember that on the Miruskny hunt, my guest ran neck to neck with the Count's dog, while your squeezer, he was left holdverse behind. So he says that your squeezer could not catch up with Guess. And to this Chupkov says that he was left behind because the Count's whipper-in hit him with a whip. So he is telling that why that happened. So then there's fact 2. Lemov reminds Chupkov that when once the dogs they were chasing a fox, Squeezer went behind a sheep. So now he is telling that what Squeezer did when they had to chase the fox. Chupkov warns Lemov, saying that he may lose his temper, so let's stop arguing. So now at this Chupkov, when he doesn't have anything else to say, so he says that he is about to lose his temper, so it's better that they should stop arguing. Now on page 155, Chupkov says, you started because everybody is always jealous of everybody else's dog. So now Chupkov is saying that I know that everyone is jealous of others' dog and you also are jealous of our dog. Yes, we are all like that. So you too, sir, aren't blameless. You no sooner begin with this, that, and the other, and all that, I remember everything. So he says that no sooner you began with this, comparing your things with our things. So he says that I remember everything. I remember everything means everything in the past. So now Lemov again has palpitations. Natalia taunts him by saying that what kind of hunter are you? You ought to go and lie on the kitchen oven and catch black beetles, not go after foxes. My heart. So every time now Lemov, he is holding his heart, he has palpitations, and therefore Natalia taunts him that you, what type of hunter you are? You're always my heart, my heart. So Chupkov agrees with her and says that he must sit at home with his palpitations. He also says that he just goes hunting to argue with people and interfere with their dogs. So he says that even when he goes for hunting, he doesn't go actually for hunting, he just goes there to argue with people and interfere with their dogs. So saying this, he wants to change the subject for he might lose his temper. No, so, keeping his point, after that, Chupkov, he wants to change the subject. But Lemov, he cannot just be quiet. He has to answer to this. So he says, and are you also a hunter? You only go hunting to get in with the Count and to intrigue. So he says that you go hunting because you want to have relations with the Count, a good friendly relations, and to intrigue. Oh, my heart, you are an intriguer. Abuses are showered at each other here again. So again now abuses, they are exchanged. Chupkov says, what? I am an intriguer? Shouts, shut up. Lemov, yes, intriguer. Chupkov, boy, pup. Lemov, old rat, chase it. Chupkov, shut up or I'll shoot you like a partridge. You fool. Lemov, everybody knows that. Oh, my heart. Your late wife used to beat you. My feet, temples, sparks. I fall, I fall. So saying this, Lumov actually he's not able to keep his balance. Chupkov, are you under the slipper? And you are under the slipper of your housekeeper. So they are still continuing to abuse. Lemov, because of his palpitations, falls into an armchair. And Natalia and Chupkov, they think he's dead. So as he falls, the both of them, they just think that he's dead. Chupkov is shocked and says, I'm the most unhappy of men. Why don't I put a bullet into my brain? Why haven't I cut my throat yet? What am I waiting for? Give me a knife, give me a pistol. So, seeing this, he is shocked and he feels that Lemov is dead and he has lost the opportunity to get his daughter married. So, he says that why I am not putting a bullet into my brain, why I haven't cut my throne yet, why I am still alive. But when he is yelling all these things, Lemov moves. So he seems to be coming around. Seems to be coming around means he's becoming conscious. Drink some water, that's right. So as Lemov is gaining consciousness, Tupkov very cleverly announces that Natalia is ready for marriage. So now, very cleverly, he comes to the point. Tupkov, he says, hurry up and get married. And well, to the devil with you, she's willing. He puts Lemov's hand into his daughter's. She is willing and all that. I give you my blessings and so on, and only leave me in peace. So he very cleverly and instantly puts his daughter's hand onto Lemov's hand and he declares that she is ready to get married and you go and get married. So Chupkov, he says, oh, what a weight off my shoulders. Oh, so after doing this, the ritual, so he says, what a weight off my shoulders and what a comical marriage, isn't it? So the couple is happy, but still the question whose dog is better is unanswered. So at this point, there is curtain and the play closes. Now the theme of the play, that's very important. So, this one act play, The Proposal, written by Anton Chekhov, is woven around the theme of marriage based on vested interests rather than love. So, this is the basic theme, marriage based on vested interests rather than love. It's also called marriage of convenience. The play, set in 19th century Russia, is a satire, a farce. Farce, it means comic dramatic play that lays bare the ethics of the so-called aristocrats of the time. So it lays bare the ethics. So where were the ethics? The only concern was money and ownership. So to enhance the status and retain their financial supremacy, they did not even mind marrying someone who was totally a mismatch. In this play too, capital assets take precedence over congeniality. Lemov and Natalia represent a class that thinks nothing beyond money and power. The subject of their talk begins from money and ends with profit. Everything is a business deal for them. We find Lemov and Natalia in an ineffable talk. She talking about her hay, and he talking about his great hierarchy and business minded friendly relations. Lemov wants to extend a marriage proposal to Natalia by painting a picture perfect, not of love or his liking for Natalia, but of his highly influential ancestry. Natalia, too, who is called a lovesick cat by her father, is waiting for a suitable proposal from a wealthy family ready to make a grab at it. How petty issues become a subject of honor is interesting to note and creates humor in the play. The situation under which the marriage is solemnized is quite comical and far from heart-to-heart reunion. Even for Chipkov, Natalia's marriage is a burden from which he wants to be free as early as possible. The author very beautifully highlights the hollowness of such opportunist ties where monetary gains and financial power take an upper hand over the warmth and closeness of relationships. So, this is the basic idea or the basic theme of the play. So, it was an interesting play but a very long one. Now, in the next video, I will be bringing the self evaluation test from this chapter and you will be solving it. So that's all for today. Subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, and do tell me how helpful did you find it. So it was quick revision before your exams. In the playlist, there are other videos so you can watch them and you can take guidance from there. Follow me on Instagram so that I keep you updated about the next video. So that's all for today. Thank you and happy preparation.